All right, you guys. Good morning, good afternoon, or even good evening, depending on when you're tuning in. Welcome to the School of Life. Life is hard, but you have got to be harder. I am Mrs. Collins, your life coach. Let's get started. So, today we're going to talk about lesson 6.9. For today, you will need your notes packet. So, please take a moment and take it out of your book bags if you don't have it out already. All right, so we are going to talk about lesson 9. Lesson 9 is on applications of nonlinear systems. We are going to look at some, not water balloons, we're going to look at some word problems. And these word problems, hopefully, they have some type of connection to you and your real life. Our very first example is going to be about a water balloon. And that water balloon is being launched from a catapult. You could think about the picture in the lower left hand corner. You see a slingshot, and inside of it is a water balloon. Imagine this water balloon being catapulted, making a parabolic path. So, in other words, the path looks just like a parabola. Very similar to Angry Birds, if you've ever played that game. However, we have this water balloon. It's being launched from a catapult on the ground, and it follows this parabolic path, represented by the equation y equals negative x squared plus 8x. At the same time, we have a dart that is being fired from the height of 8 feet and follows a straight path. Goes somewhere like here. We have a dart. And it's represented by the equation y equals negative x plus 8. What we're going to do is graph each of the equations on our coordinate grid. So we're going to graph the parabola as well as we're going to graph that straight line from that dart. And then we're going to list the points or points where the paths cross. And then we'll also solve the system algebraically. So what we're endeavoring to do is see exactly where does the water balloon and that dart meet up. And if you kind of think about it, if a dart meets up with a water balloon, that water balloon is going to burst mid-air as soon as that dart hits the water balloon. So we're saying, well, when is that going to happen? What time after releasing both of them? After how many seconds? 5 seconds, 6 seconds, 8 seconds, 1 second? Like, how long is it going to be before that dart hits that balloon? So this is what we're trying to do today. Okay, so our very first goal is to graph it and see exactly where they intersect by looking at their graph. So one thing that you will have to remember is how to graph a quadratic equation. And the way that we've learned how to graph a quadratic equation is to figure out the vertex, which is that middle point, and place it into our chart, and then find the x and the y values around that middle point. So you may recall, to find it, we need to identify our a and we need to identify our b. Our a in this case is right in front of our x squared. It's a negative 1, and our b is a positive 8. We use the formula negative b divided by 2a. So in this case, we'll have a negative. Our b is an 8, so it's negative 8 over 2 times our a, which is a negative 1. So this gives us negative 8 divided by a negative 2, which is definitely equal to a positive 4. Do you remember where that goes? It goes in the middle of our So here's our 4. I have 3, 2, 1, and my 0. And on the other end, we have 5, 6. And since I want to balance it evenly, I'm going to split it. And I'll put a 7 and then simply because I wanted 4 to be directly in the middle. Okay, from there, we need to figure out the y value. So when I plug in a 0 into my equation, what do I get out? Well, let's see. Y equals a negative. I'm plugging in 0 squared plus 8 times 0. This gives us 0 plus 0 So our y value is equal to 0 when I plug in 0. So this is a 0. Okay, let's try a couple more. If I plug in a 1, y equals the negative of 1 squared plus 8 times 1. Order of operations says 1 squared is first, so 1 times 1 is 1. But I have the negative out in front, so negative 1 equals, so y equals negative 1, and then plus 8 times 1 is 8. So y is equal to 7. So we'll have a 7 here. Let's go ahead and try one more, and then I'll fill in the rest of the chart for you. Y equals a negative of our 2 squared plus 8 times 1. So y equals 2 squared, order of operations says take care of exponents first. 2 squared is 4. Then we have a negative, so negative 4, plus 8 times 1 is, oops, sorry, that should be a 2. 8 times 2 is 16. So y is equal to negative 4 plus 16 gives us a positive 12. So this is a positive 12. Okay. Then going ahead and filling in the rest of the stuff for you. This is a 15, 16, 15, 12, 7, and 0. Next step, we need to go ahead and create our graph. On our graph, our x's represents our time. And this time is in seconds. And our y-axis represents our height. And this height is in feet. So let's think about the numbers that we'll need on the x-axis and the y-axis. On the x-axis, these are our x values. So we went from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds. So we can go ahead and number them all by ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8. If we think about our heights, our lowest height was a 0, and our highest height is 16, so 16 feet. But we only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 tick marks. So in order to accommodate our 16, let's go by twos. So we can say 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, and 20. All right, and then from there, go ahead. You guys know what to do. Plot your points. We have 0, 0. We have 1, 7. We have 2, 12. 3, 15. 4, 16, which was our highest point, and then that water balloon starts to come right back down. 5, 15. 6, 12. 7, 7. And 8, 0. On your curve. The water balloon went up, it went to its highest peak, and then it came right back down. Hit the ground after 8 seconds. Okay. The next thing we need to do is graph our linear equation, y equals negative x plus 8. For this one, I'll change the color, and there's two things that we need to identify here. We need to know the slope, and we'll need to know the y-intercept. Our slope, the number that's being multiplied by x, is negative 1 over 1. And our y-intercept is our constant, which is 8. So this means that we'll start at 8 on the y-axis, which is here. And then we'll go down 1 over 1. So down 1 would be down to 7. So from 8, now we're at 7, this halfway mark. And then over 1, we're at 1. So this is our first point. down 1, so from 7 to 6, and then over 1, we are here. Down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1, down over, we are lastly here. Okay. And then from there, we will connect our points, and we are done. And when we're solving these systems of nonlinear systems, we sometimes have more than one solution. And our solutions here are the two places where our graphs have intersected, there and there. So one point is the point 1, 7. And our other solution would be 8, 0. So what does this mean? This means when our water balloon was launched into the air and our dart was fired. This means that they both intersected at the point 1, 7. So after 1 second, both of them were 7 feet off the ground, and that's where they intersected. So if you can imagine, this is where like your enemy would have flawed your plan. As you threw the water balloon so that you can hit them, they were like, not gonna happen. And they threw that dart, they both met up here, that water balloon bursted right there, midair. Okay, so it never reached its goal. Let's say that maybe here was the goal. Okay, the other answer was here at 8 seconds, and it was 0 feet. So both the dart as well as your water balloon would have made it here if that dart just so happened not to have penetrated. But according to the math, that's where it would have first hit each other. But these are your two solutions. So 1, 7, and 8, 0. Letter C says to solve the system algebraically. In solving the system algebraically, that's where we need our math. So what we would do is look at our system. Our system is 1 was y equals negative x squared plus 8x. And the other equation is y equals negative x plus 8. Notice that both are solved for our y. So we can go ahead and substitute them in for each other. So the equation we would solve is negative x squared plus 8x equals negative x plus 8. If you can remember, solving this equation requires us to get our one side of our equation equal to our 0. Okay, so what I would do here, I would add my x squared to both sides. That'll give me a positive 8x equals negative x plus 8 plus x squared. Okay. Next, I would subtract my 8x on both sides. And notice that I'm adding things with their like terms. So this gives me 0 equals negative x minus 8x gives us a negative 9x plus 8 plus x squared. All right, I like to see my x squared first, that term first. So 0 equals x squared minus 9x plus 8. Looking at this problem, I can tell that I can factor. So therefore, I'll go ahead and create my diamond. At the top, I'll have my a times c, so that's 8. And at the bottom are negative 9. Two numbers that I can multiply to get an 8, but add to get a negative 9 would be negative 8 and negative 1. Negative 8 times negative 1 gives us positive 8. And negative 8 plus negative 1 gives us a negative 9. So then this becomes 0 equals x squared minus 8x minus 1x plus 8. Factor by grouping. have 0 equals x times x minus 8, then minus 1 times x minus 8. So 0 equals x minus 1 times x minus 8. And finally, once you set those equal to 0, you'll get x equals a positive 1 and x equals a positive 8. But then note that you have one last step. And that one last step would be to plug them both into your equations. So if I use y equals a negative x plus 8, and I plug in my x equals 1. Then when I plug in a 1, I get y equals negative 1 plus 8. So y equals a 7. And for the other one, if x is equal to an 8, then I get y equals negative 8 plus 8. And that gives us y equals a 0. So when you plug in 1, your final answers. When you plug in 1, you get out a 7. And when you plug in 8, you get out a 0. Okay. Which again matches. These answers here matches the answers that we got when we graphed. So therefore, our answer, when are the dart as well as the water balloon at the same levels? After 1 second, they're both at 7 feet in the air. And after 8 seconds, they're both on the ground again at 0 feet in the air. So the answers are 1, 7 and 8, 0. All right. So the next question is the you try problem. This question, please complete this question and then submit your answers in the Google form. Pelican flying in the air over water drops a crab from a height of 30 feet. The distance between the falling crab and the water can be represented by the function y equals negative 16t squared plus 30, where t is time in seconds. To catch the crab as it falls, a seagull flies along a path represented by a function y equals negative 8t plus 15. Can the seagull catch the crab before the crab hits the water? So imagine you have this pelican and you have this seagull. This pelican had it first. He dropped the crab. Why would you do such a thing? And the seagull sees it and he's like, oh man, there's my lunch for today. I can go and get that crab and I can eat it. I just have to do this all before that crab hits the water, because once it hits the water, it's a goner. I won't have lunch. I'll be starving. So we're going to see whether or not the crab as well as the seagull will ever cross paths, whereas the seagull can catch that crab before it hits the water. So let's see. Will the seagull have lunch today? We're looking to see when will they both be equal. At what time, what seconds, and how many feet off the ground will they both be at the exact same spot? So to do that, this is solving a system. We can go ahead and solve the system by using algebraically. So our system is y equals negative 16t squared plus 30. And y equals negative 8t plus 15. Okay. So for this, again, both of our equations are already solved for y. We can go straight ahead and set them equal to each other. So negative 16t squared plus 30 is equal to negative 8t plus 15. Since this is a quadratic equation, we must have the quadratic set equal to a 0. So what I will do is I'll add 16t squared to both sides. And notice that these are not like terms. I'm going to add it plus 16t squared. I'm not placing it under any of the other terms because they're not alike. 30 equals 16t squared minus my 8t plus 15. Now the 30 is over here. We need it to be a 0, so minus 30, minus 30. And we'll have 0 equals 16t squared minus 8t minus 15. Okay, so for this one, I am going to go ahead and we will use the quadratic formula. All right, so we're solving 0 equals 16t squared minus 8t minus 15. In our equation, our a is 16, our b is negative 8, and our c is negative 15. Our quadratic formula. We have negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, all divided by 2a. So then we're going to plug in our b. That's a negative 8 plus or minus the square root of our negative 8 squared minus 4 times 16 times our negative 15, all divided by 2 times 16. So this will give us a negative 8 is a positive 8 plus or minus the square root of 64 plus 960, all divided by 32. So this is 8 plus or minus the square root of 1024, all divided by 32. This is equal to 8 plus or minus 32. The square root of 1024 is 32 divided by 32. So we have two cases. One where we do 8 plus 32 divided by 32. And the other where we do 8 minus 32 divided by 32. Here we get 40 divided by 32. And 40 divided by 32 is 1.25. 8 minus 32 divided by 32 is 24 over 32, which is negative 24, which is negative 0.67. So these are our two x values. If you can remember the question, we're looking at, can the seagull catch the crab before it hits the water? In this case, at this 1.25, that means 1.25 at 1.25 seconds. The seagull and the crab are at the same location. And if they're at the same location, this means that the seagull can catch the crab. And that will happen at 1.25 seconds. So the answer is yes. All right, the last example that we'll cover today is about stock. And if you've been at least listening to the news or following along on your social media feeds, you'll notice that the stock market is going down right now, especially with the coronavirus. So this particular question is about the price of Apple stock on the stock market decreased and then increased according to the equation that's given to us, where X is the number of months. The price of Microsoft stock increased according to the equation over the same amount of time. We're going to state all nearest prices to the nearest dollar when both stock values were about the same. And so this is again the y equals 0.75x squared minus 6x plus 20 is our first equation. And the second is y equals 2.75x plus 1.5. Remember, we cannot use elimination for these problems. We must simply either graph or use substitution. We're going to use substitution. So what we are going to do is go ahead and check together. Once both of them already have y's isolated. So we'll have 0.75x squared minus 6x plus 20 equals 2.75x plus 1. Okay, our next step is to go ahead and set our equation equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract the 2.75x on both sides. So minus 2.75x. I'll end up with 0.75x squared minus 8.75x plus 20 equals 1.5. Okay. Subtract your 1.5 on both sides. And we'll have 0.75x squared minus 8.75x and then plus 18.5 equals 0. Now we can go ahead and identify the A. It is 0.75. Our B is negative 8.75. And our C is 18.5. Let's plug it all into the quadratic formula. Equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2 times a. So this becomes negative b. That is a negative of negative 8.75 plus or minus the square root. Our b once again is negative 8.75 squared minus 4 times our a. What's our a? Our a is 0.75. And then our c is 18.5. All divided by 2 times 0.75. Now, I highly suggest that you guys are using your calculators and making sure that Mrs. Collins is getting the correct values here. I mean, if I'm not, email me. Prove me wrong, because I can be wrong. I am a human. All right, so negative 8.75 gives us a positive 8.75 plus or minus the square root of, after calculating, this comes out to be 30.0625, all divided by 1.5. Okay. We go a little bit further. We need to now use or place this into our calculators. What is the square root of 30.0625? I'm waiting for that answer, guys. All right, I'll give it to you. It's 8.75 plus or minus. That square root is about 5.48. And then all divided by 1.5. Okay, we have two cases. Our two cases are 1, 8.75 plus 5.48 divided by our 1.5. And your second case is 8.75 minus 5.48 divided by your 1.5. Let's see what they're both equal to. The very first one, where we're adding 5.48, gives us 9.49. And the second one is about 2.18. So those are our two x values. This and one last step. The very last step is to go ahead and plug your two x values into your equation. Either one is fine. And then figure out your y. So let's do that last step over here. We have our equation, y equals 2.75 times our x value of 9.49 plus 1.5. This is equal to $27.60. The other one is y equals 2.75. Plug in your 2.18 plus 1.5. And this one gives us $7.50. So therefore, our two solutions here, two solutions are 9.49, comma 2760, and the other one is 2.18, comma $7.50. So what this means is that after a little over nine and a half months, the both prices were equal at $27.60, and a little over 2 months, both prices were equal at $7. Last question is for you to complete and submit your answers in the Google form. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that at some point you did pause the video just to catch a break. It was a lot of work. However, if you do have any questions, feel free to rewind the video. Feel free to email me and we can discuss anything that you need to talk about. And you guys have yourselves a nice day. Remember the life tip for today: wash your hands, cover your mouth. Please make sure to practice that social distancing, and have a nice day. I'll see you guys when I see you.